Let's react to this. Woman executed ex-boyfriend's new lover at the Halloween party. Before we even go into this, it's usually around Halloween time or just the holidays where people act crazy. But why around Halloween? Maybe it's the ghost. Scary shit. Let's get into it.
It's a twisted love triangle that ends in murder. When a scorned lover finds her ex with someone else, she shoots the other girl while in bed. After that...
Wait, I ain't even gonna say nothing.
Calls for this same ex and her brother to help move the body more than 100 miles from the crime scene. At some point during all of this, she turns to her brother and says 3 chilling words. We killed someone.
And then after that, he said, day one, let's get it.
Today's story is another super upsetting one about a life cut far too short. And it takes us to Sacramento, California in 2021. That's where 19-year-old Leilani Mari Beauchamp went to a Halloween party, enjoyed the evening with a couple of her friends. When things started to wind down, Leilani decided to leave with Juan Peralta. He's actually an Air Force airman. So Juan takes Leilani back to his home in nearby Fairfield, California. He shares this home with another airman. But it's not the roommate that meets them back at home. It's actually Juan's ex-girlfriend, 24-year-old Jessica Quintanilla, who becomes one of the defendants we're going to talk about today. So Jessica says she and Juan broke up the night before. She says Juan confronted her, and there was some sort of argument, and the gun accidentally went off. But that's not at all what prosecutors say. They say Jessica actually stormed into Juan's home and found him in bed next to Leilani. After that, she purposely pulled the trigger, shooting and killing Leilani. Here's where Jessica's brother gets involved. That's 30-year-old Marco Quintanilla. Marco later testified that Jessica told him, quote, we killed someone. But he says he thought that was a joke.
That's a you.
Play new voicemails?
You have 59 new messages.
The great Greta Gerwig. Hey, it's Kai. And I've been cooking up a script that you...
Not me.
Even so, Marco helped Jessica carry out Leilani's body. But so too did Juan. Juan was actually later granted immunity in exchange for his testimony. And according to that testimony, he says Jessica forced him to help move the body. Here's what he testified, quote, she told me she would kill me if I said anything. So Leilani's body was then moved about 130 miles south of the crime scene to Salinas, California. But during all this, Leilani is reported missing on October 30th because she disappeared after the Halloween party. It's the next day on October 31st when investigators find Leilani's body in Salinas. It had been wrapped up in a blanket along a hillside. A day after that, now we're on November 1st, Jessica, her brother Marco, and Juan are all arrested. Now, as we said, Juan received immunity in this case, but Jessica was charged with murder and her brother Marco faced an accessory charge. All this happened back in 2021, but the case finally went to trial in November of 2024. It was a 5-week-long trial, and jurors took 3 days to deliberate. Quite a while that they were deliberating, but they came...
It don't take 3 days to figure that out. Like, maybe it don't take 3 days. Sorry.
With a guilty verdict. Just this month, Jessica was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, and her brother was sentenced to 4 years.
Damn.
All right, here we are with former prosecutor Melba Pearson. And Melba, I wanted to talk to you specifically today because of your history as a prosecutor. With a case like this, how do you even begin? I know it's salacious right from the start because we have...
Sorry. The woman to the left in the red, she kind of look a little AI. You know, don't take that as a diss. I'm just saying, you know, with a lot of AI going on nowadays, you never know. Now, the other lady, I can tell. She not AI. Not dissing either.
Love triangle and a murder of a very young girl.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. And this is definitely a tragic situation all around. You have a beautiful young person who was cut down in the prime of her life as a result of jealousy.
I don't know if cut down should have been the word. sometimes we kind of gotta, read the room. And judging that she got books back there,
So where you start as a prosecutor is, first of all, you've got to put the emotion to the side. As tragic as it is, you have to focus on what the evidence is. And in this situation, the prosecutor was quite fortunate to be able to flip or have some of the people that were involved in this horrible homicide testify against the other people involved. So that is definitely a huge piece of evidence that was able to inform the jury and get them to that point of voting guilty. But also, again, you still have the physical evidence in terms of, poor Leilani's, her body, as well as the testimony of the cooperating witness, as well as the brother being like, I just thought my sister was kidding when she said she killed somebody. That's a separate issue. I have some weird feelings about that, but as a general premise, at least those bits and pieces were enough to at least inform the jury and get them to the point of a guilty verdict.
And we know where the case ended, obviously, the guilty verdict, and then we have sentencing and all of that. But right from the start, I know motive isn't required, but in this case, it seems that prosecutors would have a really strong motive, jealousy, a new woman in the bed of a former lover. Is that helpful?
That's always the motive. Once the old cat see the dog getting some new cat, it's over with. It's the way of the land, it's been like this since 0 BC, whatever that is.
Presenting the case.
Absolutely. Listen, even though legally prosecutors don't need to prove motive, it's human nature. Everybody wants to know why. Why did something happen?
She looked like she smelled like cocoa butter, like a good little shea butter,
Why did this heinous act occur? Why is this person no longer on this planet with us, right? So that ability to give that explanation to the jury really strengthens the prosecutor's case.
She said something too. Sorry, I low-key, feel away when I see videos and pictures of people that are no longer here, especially due to, bad circumstances. It always kind of makes me sad, like survivor's remorse type stuff,
And because of the fact that now they were able to paint this picture of the love triangle, and this person was just so jealous and angry that they reacted with violence and with murder, that is something that resonates very deeply with anyone, but clearly with the jury, because literally crimes really boil down to three things. It's basically greed, jealousy, or some manner of hatred, right? But it's really coming down to the same kind of elemental emotional drivers. So to be able to tie the case and the facts to one of those emotional drivers that is very common to everyone, I think really helps strengthen the case and is what propelled the prosecution to success in this particular instance.
Yeah, I agree. They were able to show a really vivid picture of everything. And something you mentioned, too, is they had amazing witness testimony. So we have the love triangle, so to speak, and the man who was involved with it, Juan Parra Peralta. He actually testified, and he was granted immunity because he was kind of involved with moving Leilani's body and where it ended up. How does all of that work with immunity? Because obviously his testimony is super important in the case.
Immunity is one of those controversial aspects, and a lot of times juries don't like to hear from people that were involved in the crime and somehow are able to escape accountability. So that's why it's very important for the public.
Yeah, like you don't get to just do some dumb shit, then get to pop up and then try to speak your piece out of it. Like, no, that ain't how the world works. You feel me? You do your dumb shit. You get dealt with some dumb shit. Just how this dumbass shit works.
To kind of set it up and make it very clear, like, listen, I'm not condoning or co-signing what this person did, but they have vital information that the jury needs to hear. Many times in opening or closing arguments, the argument is made, and I've made that argument many times as a prosecutor, that, like, listen, I'd love to bring you, a priest, a nun, and, a Sunday school teacher to be able to tell you what happened, but those aren't the people that were present at this horrible incident. The people that were present were people with criminal history, people that may have been involved in some way. And you can consider that in terms of whether or not you find them credible. But at the end of the day, these are the people who are claiming to be the eyewitnesses, and the jury has to make the decision as to whether or not they're telling the truth and try to put to the side whatever prejudices they may have because of the person's lifestyle or whatever the case may be.
So that brings up a really good point in the witness testimony. So we have Pero Peralta, who went through and explained what he saw, everything that's great for the prosecution. But there's also the testimony of the defendant's brother, who comes up and says, she said something to me to the effect of, we just killed someone. And the brother testifies that he thought this was a joke at the time. I have a couple of questions about this. One, how could you believe that's a joke, especially when you have a body right there? I don't really buy that. And then two, do we often see siblings?
How do you get to say, I thought she was just playing? Like, is it something I'm missing? Because, yeah, it just got to be something I'm missing. You don't sit there and just assume your sister playing if it's a dead body there. Like, did she go to Party City or something? Like, it is around Halloween.
Working together to help one another get out of a crime situation?
So I don't really buy the brother's testimony on that, because at the end of the day, you tell me you just killed somebody. I look to my left and there's a body laying there. I'm going to put two and two together and make four. And I'm not going to think, oh, they're just kidding.
That is how you make
it would be in a vacuum where there was no body, they were in a bar drinking, and she made that comment. I could understand the brother being like, she's just kidding. But literally the evidence is in front of you. And then after that, you go and help your sister dispose of the body? Yeah, no. The good thing about his presence in this case is that he was able to give critical testimony. But at the same token, if he had refused to help his sister, he could have provided the same testimony and then not have to have served a prison sentence at the end of giving said testimony.
The head work. You feel me? Like, you just...
Fried chicken and wontons and teriyaki glaze and an egg roll. Some people think the Zaxby Sensation salad is too delicious to be a salad.
I mean,
that's a really good point. Obviously, he's being held accountable for his actions because he did choose to participate in something really gruesome. But if we're looking at the defense side of things, the defendant says the gun accidentally went off. She says that she was confronted in this bedroom. She didn't seek out Leilani, but she was confronted by the man they both had relations with. I mean, what do you make of all of that? Was her defense, I mean, we saw how the case ended, but could her defense have been...
Bullshit. I smell bullshit. Smell bullshit. I mean, you smell it. The fuck? Come on. Like, look at both their faces. They both making the faces of I smell bullshit. Like, we all smell it. The fuck?
Wrong in any way?
The only place I would have gone to as a defense counsel was almost like a temporary insanity type of thing, right? That she just came in, she was so blinded by rage, and she acted in this way. She regrets it, she's so horribly sorry. Something along those lines. You just kind of have to own it. Because I didn't do it or some other person did it, that wasn't going to cut it. And the reality is, guns don't just go off. Right? It takes a good 7 pounds of pressure, if not more, in order to pull the trigger and basically end someone's life. So this isn't that, it's like a little feather that you accidentally just brushed your hand against the gun and now suddenly it went off and killed somebody. No, there's intentionality involved. There's, again, more force involved in terms of being able to pull the trigger. And so her story didn't make any sense. It could not hold water.
I ain't trying to defend nobody, but just coming from, certain areas, when your gun is kind of used up or just not used properly, you get situations where, cheddar bob happens, so just gotta watch out sometimes.
I really like the way that you broke that down because it does make sense, and that's ultimately what a jury agreed with as well. So before we get talking about the verdict, I want to talk a bit more about the crime because obviously we have murder, and then after that we have moving the body. Even moving it just an inch on the crime scene is a no-no completely. But then they moved the body 100 miles away, which is quite a way. It looks like they were trying to cover up things. I mean, is that just another thing against our defendant here?
That is a huge piece of evidence against the defendant because, again, it's that consciousness of guilt and showing the lengths that she was going to be able to cover up this crime, and also the brother as well. Because, again, if the brother is traveling 100 miles, still thinking that his sister was joking about killing someone, yet again, doesn't pass the smell test to me. And, and also just to go back to something that you had mentioned earlier, there are times when we will see brothers and sisters, siblings working together to be able to cover up a crime, but that's not the norm. You'll usually see situations where the sibling had heard from the other sibling, oh, I did X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and they may either think it's a joke or they may try and advise them, listen, you need to turn yourself in, or maybe you should talk to a lawyer.
It's like
so many times see the sibling having knowledge of the crime, but not necessarily participating. So that's where I tend to see in terms of that.
And in some cases, I've even seen siblings testify against their brother, sister on the stand. So they point out, okay, this was illegal. Here's what I saw. So people can obviously report the information. They don't have to go along with their sibling and complete these very gruesome and illegal tasks. Talking about the verdict, though, the jury obviously reached a verdict of guilty here. Do you think there were any questions at all, or do you think it was a very easy decision for them?
I don't think that juries coming to a decision is ever easy because depending on the level of the charge, you either have 6 or 12 people that come from different walks of life, different life experiences. So, there is a lot of discussion and going back and forth. So I'll never say the deliberation process is easy.
It's that slow motion.
But I would say this set of facts is very straightforward.
I'm trying to be
sad. You have a jealous girlfriend. You have the witnesses that say, hey, the poor victim, Leilani, was murdered, that she was moved 100 miles away from the crime scene, that she was reported missing. Everything was very straightforward and would be very simple for the jury to grasp in terms of the law is not that complicated when it comes to it, and the facts are not that complicated once it's been presented in totality in court.
Yeah, you're right. This is a case we all could kind of understand. We've heard lore about other love triangles, seen it on TV. It's something that we all are familiar with. So you're right. I think that was helpful for the jury in this case. Moving on to sentencing, she was sentenced to 25 to life. She is a young woman, though, at this time.
She needs life.
What do you make of that sentence? Do you think it'll be more toward the 25 or the life? What are you thinking?
Well, my guess would be that she will have to do the full 25 and then at that point go before the parole board and seek release. If she's had good behavior during that time, and good behavior includes not getting any write-ups, not getting into any fights or any infractions, following the correctional officer's instructions, taking advantage of the educational opportunities that may be at the prison where she's housed. So if it's about getting her GED or getting an associate's degree, some prisons do have that option. You can also attend therapy groups or drug rehab. So there's a variety of things you can do to better yourself in prison, which will strengthen your argument before the parole board saying, listen, this is what I did for the last 25 years. I didn't just sit in my cell. I did things to better myself. And here's what my plan is going to be once I'm released. I intend to get a job in this particular field or, whatever the case may be, but showing that you have some support and a plan for when you're released. If she can't comply and do all of those things, then her sentence will be longer and it could lead towards life. It all depends on her, really.
That'll be interesting to see which route she kind of takes. My final question for you, Melba, is talking about appeals. This is something we hear a lot from defendants after a case. It's not over. I'm going to appeal. If she was going to appeal, what would she even bring forward? Do you think that's a possibility here?
Listen, you can always appeal. Doesn't mean it'll be successful. So she could claim ineffective assistance of counsel.
True.
She could claim that,
True.
and in that particular claim, she could be saying that my attorney didn't do the best that they could do. They didn't speak to all the witnesses, or maybe there was an alibi witness they didn't follow up with, or there was a plea agreement that I wanted them to negotiate for me and they refused to do so, or didn't try hard enough, or something along those lines. That's often the most common reason why defendants would use to appeal. They could also point to something that happened during the course of the trial. Let's say if the jury instructions were read incorrectly, or if a piece of evidence was admitted and the defense counsel objected in a timely fashion, that can be grounds for appeal. So, hopefully the trial was clean and that there weren't any of those types of issues. Again, the defense can bring up whatever they want on appeal. It does not mean it will be successful.
Just another disturbing case we're covering here on Law and Crime. Melba Pearson, thanks for coming on and walking us through it.
Thank you so much for having me, as always.
I want to end this story with the memory of Leilani. Here's a statement from her family. It reads, quote, "Leilani was truly a blessing to us and her beloved friends. We will miss her smile, her laugh, her caring demeanor, her strong will, her passion for life, and..."
All I'm going to say is, make sure your ex ain't lingering around. She ain't got no keys to your house, none of that. Make sure y'all sever your ties in a clean way, I mean, just women, ladies, just take care of yourself. I'm out.